All right. Want to give Brett Russell some time to introduce himself and kind of do similarly to what we have all done. But Brett, I'll ask you to do a little deeper dive since you are our leader that we are going to hear from today. Brett is on our chamber board, and his family has been a part of our organization for a long time. And it's nice to have you joining us and not only leading that organization, but being a leader for the chamber as well. So, but share a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background and where you grew up and how you got to be where you are now.
Sure. So, as you all know now, or by now, my name is Brett Russell. I am the president of Atlanta Landscape Group. And it all started back when I was younger. I was growing up. I always had a passion for people. I saw Bob and how he interacted with the landscape industry and how he interacted with this community. And he built his name based on relationships. And that's something that I've seen and valued for myself is relationships and communication. So I then went to college at Kennesaw State for my psychology degree and moved on from that to getting my MBA through Kennesaw State as well. And since then, I've been working. I've dabbled in our business through those years, through the college years, and then I came on board and worked my way through the different departments that are within our organization and got my feet wet kind of in all the areas. I say I had my hands in all the cookie jars. So then after a little bit doing that and I got my MBA, that's when Bob gave me the title of president. So that way I could step up. And well, by then I had stepped up and I was leading many different meetings and leadership meetings and things like that. So that's when he saw that I was doing what I say where I needed to be and where the company needed me to be. So doing that, that's when I was given the title of president. And since then I've been trying to work in the business and develop the business and take us to the next step. Through that also personally, I found and reconnected with my wife, who wasn't my wife at the time, of course, but we had known each other since preschool, and we had always been friends throughout this whole entire time. And as I would always tell all of my friends, that the friend zone doesn't exist. It may take 20 years, but we got out of that. So we got together and got engaged and got married, and we have a 4-year-old who's coming up to be 5 in May. So it's a lot of life changes have occurred, and
Yeah.
that's where we're at.
Well, tell me, or tell us, I should say, it sounds like that you have navigated the learning curve of leadership. What are some of the key qualities you believe are important for leaders to be effective?
So there's a difference between being in a family business and being put in a leadership position. You have to do it in a certain way that makes you an effective leader, right? In order to do that, they have to trust you, and they have to know that you're not here just to point your finger and tell them what to do. That would be what you would title as a boss, not a leader. Leadership is not a title, and it's not a position. Leadership is the ability to say that you're going to do something and do it, and gain the trust of the people that are around you. In order to be in a leadership position, you have to lead. And if there's nobody to lead, then are you really leading? So they have to want to follow you. So building that trust and just doing what you say you're going to do and doing it consistently, I think that's the most important thing.
Well, I was going to ask you next about kind of how you maintain those relationships, but I think that process kind of touches on that, right? What about leading individuals that are different? And how you maybe change your leadership style depending on, who you're working with and who you're trying to have an effect on. Any thoughts on that?
So one thing that I found very valuable from my psychology degree is at the time when I was doing my degree, I was thinking, why am I getting a psychology degree? At the end of the day, that's not going to land me a job. Just with that alone, or at least one that I would want. Before I was thinking that I was going to end up where I am long term. But what I did learn that was very valuable and important is each person is different. Each scenario is different. Each everything is different and it's never the same. So you have to be able to adjust to each person. You're going to communicate completely different, maybe, than how you communicate. You may communicate to me a certain way, and you may communicate to me a certain way, but both of you are going to receive communication different as well. So there's a way that you have to come across to different people for it to be receptive. And it can't be the same across the board. Being a leader, you have to understand that. You can't turn around and try to communicate and say, well, they took it the wrong way, that's on them. You have to be bigger than that. That's why you're the leader. You have to understand and know that you need to communicate in ways that they're going to best receive you.
Any thoughts about communicating both expectations, but then also constructive feedback to individuals? Anything that you have learned in your years of leaning into leadership in those areas?
So one thing that I've learned very quickly is that the best way to have those conversations is to just be honest, direct, and transparent, and let them know that they're always valued. So being able to have these open and genuine communications, that's where that conversation thrives, and being able to have feedback and constructive discussions, areas of opportunity, expectations, things like that, being able to just be direct in what you want. It's better to over communicate than to not communicate.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the business, and you mentioned areas as being opportunities, and probably a little bit of the vision for the future. What are your thoughts, and specific to the business as well, what are your thoughts about where you see the company going and where you want to take it? We chatted about some of those a little bit pre-lunch, but kind of for the good of the group, and then I think specifically for the business itself, what are you looking toward there?
Sure. So recently, internally, we have decided that we had to ask ourselves, like what you're asking, where are we going? Um, I believe that whether you're talking about an individual person or an organization, you're either improving or you're getting worse, one or the other. You're not stagnant. There's no such thing as just being stagnant. And then also knowing where you're going or what the vision is. Are we going to continue to operate as a just with the branches that we do have, and just focusing on HOA that we do have as our primary bread and butter per se, or are we going to try to explore other areas? So we decided that we want to grow and we want to get into other areas of opportunity, such as commercial buildings, offices, complexes, industrial, installation, groundbreaking installation, all sorts of things, and break away from just HOAs without losing the quality and detail that's required for that. We want to grow this business and get bigger and better without losing the detail that we have from being a family-owned business. I think that's one thing that we've always been able to offer is you can pick up the phone and call them at the end of the day. Some of these other larger companies, you can't pick up the phone, you can't get a hold of the president, you can't get a hold of the owner, you can't get a hold of the people that you know who can get things done for you if something's going wrong. So that's kind of the vision for us is to just grow, but focus on the relationships.
Do you feel like that, because I think even when it's opportunities and even when it's positive, opportunities, change is hard. So are you having to navigate that with your team as you guys kind of set your sights on this, and any words of wisdom about how to do that well?
Yeah, so there is a lot of change that's happening for us internally. We don't just say, yeah, we want to do this growth and we want to go into these areas without that change. But it's also intentional. One of the things that we're working on right now from a leadership team point of view is relooking at what are our values. Who we are today could be different from who we were when the company started. So relooking at our values, our mission statement, our vision statement, what's our purpose, and creating a plan of really thinking of this is where we think we want to be in the next 10 to 20 years. And here's that roadmap. And here's a game plan that we would like to work out. And then when you break it down into buckets of goals that can be addressed with individual teams to actually work out tangible action items to accomplish that vision change.
How do you approach kind of trying to foster that solutions centered mindset amongst teams? And I would imagine you guys, like you mentioned, it's teams with an S. There's
Yes.
it's a lot of, it's not everybody looking toward the same solution. There's teams focused on different elements. How do you foster the engagement of your workforce in that process?
So what I've always told every single employee on any level that we have at this business, from our laborers all the way up to executive level, everybody's opinion matters. You matter. You're not a number in this business. So in order to do that, we want them to feel heard. If you have an idea on whatever we're discussing, and we bring in this change, and we're saying, hey, here's where we think we want to go. How are we going to get there? What are we doing? We need them to speak up and to know that they're not going to be shut down, that their opinion matters and it's going to be heard, and we're going to genuinely consider it and talk through it, figure out how we can get there as a team, because it's not going to be done by one person. It's going to be done by the individual teams that's working on that. So we meet on a regular basis right now because of how much change we are making. We meet with operations on a weekly basis. So we brought on a new chief operations, and he's meeting with each branch every week. So one branch is on one day, the next is on the next, and the next is on the one after that. We're also having, sales and marketing meetings every Monday now. We're having admin meetings every Monday. We're having billing and collections meetings, financial meetings every Monday. So we're meeting with all of our different departments on a weekly basis. So on top of that, we're having leadership meetings on Fridays to address how's everything else going? Do we see anything from a higher level? And not just kind of creating a wish list and then letting it go, but being intentional.
I'm glad that you shared, because I was going to kind of, I guess, press for some of those tangible steps, because you talked about like looking at the mission, looking at the vision, and then creating a plan. And I thought what might be valuable to folks are kind of what those tangible steps are, and maybe what resources you're leveraging. I mean, even if it's outside perspectives or outside resources, anything else kind of in that process that you think could be valuable to people, that no matter what industry they're in, if they're looking to do the same thing. Because I think particularly for entrepreneurs in the room or in small businesses, that process is, there may be a book for dummies on it, but that's not the same as hearing from someone who's stepped through it and is walking through it. So any resources of recommendation or books or anything that you would.
We haven't really been looking through it from like more of a book perspective, but it's almost like the way that we have approached it is to not make it complicated. Simplify it. Change happens easier and more efficiently if you can just simplify it. So we were just like, okay, well, we don't want to have to get all these different resources involved with this change. Let's use the team we have and figure out how to make it happen. Um, in doing so, how do we simplify it? So that's our tool. Is it simple? Can it be followed? So we just say, what's the problem? What are the areas of opportunities? What are the areas that could need improvements? And then who does that impact? Does that impact this branch? Yes or no? If it does, then okay, well, let's take that problem. Let's have a meeting with this branch. Let's address it. And then let's say, what are some ideas on how to solve it? Throw those ideas out. All right, well, let's narrow it down now. And then we've got our idea, how to solve it. Okay, well, how do we work through that? It's just people having those conversations.
So one challenge, and it may or may not be the case for you guys, Brett, but if not, I'm sure it is for someone at the table. We at the chamber hear it day in and day out, and I know that it is an area that you are well entrenched in, even if it's not a challenge, is on the workforce development side. So I did kind of want us to chat a little bit about that. For those who don't know, the chamber has a workforce collaborative. It's a group that meets every month, and it is made up of employers, education institution representatives. It runs the gamut of the size of the employers, but really it meets to focus on the challenges that we know that are out there amongst our employers. And Brett has been instrumental in that group. So tell us a little bit about kind of your own passion. I mean, I personally know you're sacrificing some time to be a part of those discussions. Why are that area particularly important to you?
Well, for most companies, without a workforce, you don't have a company. I mean, that's the bottom line right there. You can't run a business if you don't have people there working for you, and with you and in the business. So it is important. And without these people, you wouldn't be where you are today. They're the ones that we need to focus on. So what's going on there and what we've discussed in the workforce development, is that what's going on in the workforce and how do we make sure that everybody has access to work and make sure that not only do they have access to work, to these jobs, but to help develop these people out there before that even happens, to make sure that everybody has a path, whether that's going to college and then going into the workforce or getting a higher education, or whether it's not at all, whether they're going right out of high school, making sure that they at least, everybody gets through high school and then they get out into a job after that, or some sort of shadowing or whatever path that may be, but trying to make sure that we're not forgetting about the labor. Um,
Are there any pathways to success in this space that you guys have found? I know it's something that your company focuses on a lot. Any solutions that work a good percentage of the time, or how you guys prioritize kind of the talent recruitment side of things?
right, so that's something that we do spend a lot of time trying to figure out. And not everybody in the workforce is blessed to have a car. Not everybody is blessed to have a single family home or is blessed to live in the area that they want to live in. Everybody has their own walk, their own life, and where they're at in that life affects them, and it affects them being able to get certain jobs. So one thing that we have done is to try to work with people or their friends or their family as well, and try to say, well, if you can't get to work, how do we get you to work? Or if you're having a hard time with living expenses or anything along that line, maybe we try to relocate you along with some other people of similar background. So that way you're in a more affordable living area where we can also provide transportation to get you to work. So that way you can save up and you can get on your own feet. And we try to work with these individuals to try to create a plan, help them save so they can improve their own life. We want all of our employees to improve their lives. So focusing on that and not just saying, how do we find workers? But genuinely trying to care for the people. Because when they feel cared for and they've got friends or family or acquaintances or things like that, then through word of mouth, we can affect a wider population in the community.
And let's go back to communication a bit, but kind of in this space, because I think I know from some conversations in the collaborative meetings, I think this is where you have always lent a really fabulous perspective for the group, is around this idea of how our employers are communicating with their workforce these days, and thinking about, some of the challenges that you just mentioned. Also thinking about the idea of generational diversity in the workplace. Any recommendations to business leaders about some areas that they can be thoughtful about communication with really the workforce of the future, right?
Right. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's important to treat and to address people as people, not as another cog in the wheel or just as you're looking for the next employee, but really treat people as people. That's how you need to communicate to them. Um, that's how you figure out, well, what are their problems? What are their challenges that they're trying to overcome? If we can help solve the challenges of the workforce, the people who are having those challenges, if we can help them, then in return, they're going to help us because they're going to be able to work. If there's a lot of challenges that are creating that, whatever that may be, whether it's financial or distance or location or language barriers, whatever it is, um, just trying to get on their level and say, what's going on with your life? How can we help you? And if they come back to us and they come and work for us and we it's like a partnership. How do we help each other? That's the way to communicate it.
Well, and in the vein of partnerships, and one thing that we kind of started chatting about before lunch, and I almost Brett was going to be like, oh wait, hold it, because I want to have that conversation with everybody. But you were talking about your experience as being principal for a day, and I think that vein of workforce development, it's certainly something the collaborative focuses on a lot, right? Is thinking about our students and how we look at them as being the future of workforce. Can you share a little bit about, I know you've got a upcoming shadowing day, and I think you're going to be at an elementary school
Yeah.
in a few weeks or a week or so is what,
Yeah.
maybe the perspective isn't quite, at that level, but previously you've been principal for a day at Denmark High School. So maybe some thoughts from that experience, and then how you think that leads into really how we as leaders in the business community need to be thinking about those students who will be our future talent.
Yeah, so one thing that I loved seeing when I was principal for the day at this high school was it wasn't anything like what I experienced going through high school. What I experienced was you're in a classroom, another classroom, another classroom. Everybody is expected to go to college. If you're not going to college, then what are you doing with your life? And there's a lot of people who don't need to go to college. There's a lot of people who do need to go to college. It's what's right for the person. It's making sure that everybody has, like I was talking about earlier, everybody has a path. And what is that right path for them? What I saw when I was principal for the day was that it wasn't that. There was more care for the students. There was more direction. There was people who were interested in engineering and building, and they were actually building something. There was people who were interested in veterinarian and animals, and they had an actual program in a high school where they had real animals to work with, they had real animals to take care of, and that amazed me because I would have never thought of that. That's showing them some real life stuff that they would never get to experience other than just reading a book or seeing a video. Saying that there's other paths out there. Letting these students know that the expectation is not you have to do this. The expectation needs to be what do you want to do and how do we get there? What are you interested in? Or at least getting them open and out there to see what is. Because if they don't get that and they have all of this weight of expectation, then there's a lot of people who are going to fail. And they're not going to get into the workforce, or they're going to get in debt doing something that they really shouldn't have done to begin with. And then it's going to set them back and set them up for failure. So what I like about Forsyth County and what we're doing here as a community is trying to push the drive for not just expectations that's predetermined for these people, but expectations of, let's just figure out what do you want to do, and then figure out how to get you there.
Let's talk a little bit about the technology that workforce is sure to leverage. And I know we were chatting again about headshots and professional headshots and the possibility out there, and really kind of the steps to getting an AI generated headshot, which might not be normal business lunch conversation now, but if we had it, then it may mean that we're right on the precipice of it being quite the topic. So that is an example, but what else out there, particularly as you think about those students that you engaged with, what do we as business leaders need to be sure that we're not missing the boat on as far as a tool and a connection point that they're going to be leveraging?
I think one major key component is, and it was brought up in our last, meeting in talking about these students, is sometimes they may have all the tools. Sometimes they may have all the classes, but do they care? There's some students that they could get it, but they don't, because they don't see the big picture. And how do you help them see the big picture? Well, why am I learning about this? How is it going to be helpful? And even when I was going through high school, my thought was, I don't care about this. How is this going to help me one day? And then now that one day is here, I'm like, I remember learning about this in high school. And if I didn't learn how to, PIMDOT math, then how am I going to help do budgets in our company? Looking at Excel spreadsheets and formulas and knowing how to calculate things. Then it was just math class. Now it's reality, and it affects real numbers. And that real number affects the bottom line of your business. So we need to make sure that we don't forget how to show real world application. You're not just learning math, you're not just learning history, you're not just learning whatever that may be, but there's a reason. So what is that reason? What is that real life application?
What about for yourself personally? I mean, where do you go to stay updated on current trends, best practices when it comes to leadership and business? What are your go-to resources for that?
I guess I'm a little bit more old school when it comes to that. And by old school, I mean, I don't really go looking for a lot of things. Sometimes I'll read some articles that come up and things like that. And watch some videos, but at the end of the day, I think that has helped me the most is mentorship. I have a few key people that I reach out to that are business owners or successful people that have done and had a lot of different experiences from different angles. And for me, I mean, I don't make a lot of decisions on my own. That's what I say. I rely on the guidance and leadership of the people that I surround myself with. So I reach out to these mentors and I say, hey, I'm thinking about this or that, or whatever that is. What's your take on it? And they'll share their information with me, and they're completely different industries. Attorneys, bankers, medical, different industries, and they do their own thing and run their own thing. But from a leadership perspective, you're a leader no matter what industry you're in. So just trying to surround myself and have these conversations with other individuals who have had success to help me be a better leader.
Where, kind of generally speaking, how did you make those mentor connections?
Networking, or friends, or through the business. One of those I met through. I had a best friend growing up. His dad was a chiropractor. He ran his own chiropractic business. through them, we went on a vacation together, and he brought one of his old friends who happened to be an attorney. Now he's our corporate attorney. But I also rely on him heavily for leadership advice, because he's been there and he's done a lot. He runs his own business. He's a partner in a large law firm that's not just in the state, but it's national and even international. So through him, through my best friend's dad, the chiropractor, now my best friend, he's an attorney, and then other networking, other business owners in the industry too, just trying to reach out. Just don't be afraid to say, hey, would you be willing to mentor me?
I was gonna ask, was that kind of so it's agreed upon to some extent. I mean, they recognize that you view them as a mentor.
Right.
It's not just like, oh gosh, Brett asked me a lot of questions. It's like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
had the conversation to say, hey, I want mentorship. I'm seeking that out.
Right. You can't be afraid to just reach out and ask, would you be willing to, give me your thoughts on some things that I'm doing, help mentor me? Or even if you have somebody that is less mentorship, but more of an accountability partner. If it's not somebody who maybe, how you view as more experienced than yourself, but maybe as experienced, or just you have to have somebody, and the more the merrier, being able to communicate with and get their take. Um, I've heard a lot, it's lonely at the top. Don't don't allow that to happen. Don't be lonely at the top. Because that isolates you from being a better person, from being a better leader.
What about the flip side of that? What advice would you give to someone who finds themselves as a new mentor? Someone who's on the receiving end of that, bold person saying, "Hey, I'm seeking, your counsel and your mentorship." How do you do that well?
So I have mentors, and I feel that I am a mentor to some of my friends, um, and to some of other people that I meet. And you just have to be open. You have to know that you are in a position where you were blessed enough to receive help somehow, some way, whatever that looks like. You need to give back, and you need to be open and willing to give back however you can. If someone taught me how to do a basic budget for our family at home, I want to share how to budget to somebody else, because everybody needs help.
Well, outside of I think mentors are probably very important in any role, but especially in the role that you were in. You mentioned it is a family business. So I feel like sometimes that can kind of be the elephant in the room. So let's address it. Tips on folks engaged in a family business. You've lived it. You guys are living it. How do you do it well?
It has its good days and it has its bad days. It is family. So that in and of itself is a challenge. You have the challenges of running a business and being a part of a business, and then you have the challenges that you have with family members. When you mix the two, that creates a lovely mixture that is not always so lovely. But at the end of the day, you got to be willing to say, I have my business hat on, and not my family hat. Um, we're attacking it from, this is what's best for the business. Nothing's personal. So we got to focus on what is best for the business, what is best for everybody who is a part of this, what's best for the culture and environment of our business. And, you know, we're married. We're not always going to be very happy with each other. But at the end of the day, when we come into the office, it's not appropriate or good or healthy for the other employees who are in there with us. If we're going up and down the hallways, yelling at each other or being upset with each other for whatever that may be. It's just being respectful to everybody else and saying, you know what, we're going to work on ourselves. We're going to work on whatever we're upset about, because it's going to happen. Um, But at the end of the day, we need to turn around and say, we're going to respect each other and we're going to respect the people who are around us.
Well, and we're talking about leadership today. I mean, part of why we call this the leadership series is because we know that leadership is much easier said than done. Kudos to being a leader, but to being a leader in a family space, because that is more difficult. With that, I do want to be sure that we give some time to the room. So does anyone have any questions for Brett, or any questions to follow up on any of the items that he's covered for us today?
I do.
Yeah,
Shane
please.
Prasad. I know you touched a little bit about the workforce a while ago. The workforce has certainly changed. We're now, I'm pretty sure everybody at the table, we've been hiring younger people, a new generation. I'm just wondering if you have any insights as to how to better sort of work with those younger minds. Maybe you've got a cheat sheet that you could share with us. Obviously hiring new younger people could affect your efficiency and your productivity in your office. And so I was just kind of wondering if you had any tricks that you can share with us on how to deal with that.
Yes, so you have to know that and understand that you're talking about a different generation, right? It's a different generation that was raised differently with different times than people who were, older than who we're talking about. I spend a lot of time probably with people older than myself. That's the majority of the people that I spend time with. I'm 26, if anybody didn't know. So I've got friends who are of my generation and age group, and I've got friends who are much older than me, to 40s, 50s, 60s. And in my business, we've got pretty much a wide range of people. We've got people up to in their 60s, and we've got people all the way down to my age and be younger. So to your point, you need to know that it is different. What's important to them is going to be different than what's important to somebody else. And I think it's just addressing it on a case by case basis of what's important to them and seeing how experienced they are, because younger individuals do carry less experience. Younger individuals probably have had less experience to mature over time. But that's not always the case. So just kind of keeping an eye open for, do you need training? And being willing to find people who need training, and not only just training them, but how are they going to receive that training? What's the best way that they're going to be trained? We have younger individuals in our office right now, and two completely different people, both younger individuals, but one was trained and receives it one way, and one a different way. So I guess it's very complex, while all over the place at the same time. So it's just figuring out what makes them tick. What do they want? And then trying to address that.
So how do you figure that out then? What are the leading questions you can say with that? I'm Robert from AK Studio on Hollywood. I'm the owner of AK Studio. So to Shane's point, we have 22-year-old, we have interns who are
Yes.
KSU currently. Great school. We'll hire them every day over tech kids. KSU's killing it.
Yeah.
Okay. Tech kids are good also. I'm not saying, but KSU kids on a one-to-one basis, we have 4, 5 one recent grad and 4 interns. But they're kids. They're still in school. We're looking at them saying, you're the next generation. They're working 2 days a week, and we're giving them our insights. We're paying them to learn, And then there's the recent grads 2 or 3 years out. Then there's 5 to 6 years out. They're starting to get licensed, looking to be you know, professionals really, because it's a job until it becomes a career, I guess.
Right.
But we see everybody's all over the place. There's someone my age who is more old school than me, and I'm like, you can't talk like that. You know, there's just things you can't do. How do you find from the younger generation what makes them tick? And if it's someone who might be younger, huh?
I was like, can I answer it?
Oh, yeah,
Do a reverse mentorship, like they are technology driven. They learn so much and you can pick their brains for that information and give them those duties, like think of, it's renderings. It's almost like.
we have them
you know what I
working
mean?
on AI right now. So in
Yeah.
the whole AI conversation, we're literally doing renderings with AI. We're not actually rendering it. So we're right there on the cusp of what they're
Yeah.
doing. So we're doing that, but my concern is we spent this time educating them. Come the spring, we want them to stay. And how do we find out what's gonna make them wanna stay? I don't wanna throw money at them because some people it's not money, so it's not.
Sometimes it's flexibility and like he said, it's individually based. And they're not afraid to ask for it. Just ask.
You just gotta straight up say,
Like,
why are you here?
So telling.
You just gotta ask, why are you here? What do you want?
Yeah, like, what do you want? Some
Don't
of
be
them
afraid
it's-
to just be blunt. I mean, are you here because you're here for just another job? Are you here because you're looking to develop your resume? Are you a resume builder? Stop. Or are they looking for somewhere that they could actually develop a career? Some people genuinely just want a job, especially at the younger age. They just want a job, and you're not a career. But being aware of that at least will help you address it and tackle it and know what type of person you're working with. So that way, you know, on the front end and you're not surprised. So you can work with them and say, okay, well, you're here for a job. Does this job make you happy? You can help ask questions that maybe they're not thinking about. Where they're thinking, it's just a job I'm coming to. And then you're turning around and saying, well, you're aware of that. So what do you want out of life? And asking them those questions where they're starting to think about that. And then they do see a future. You have to help them see a future with you. If they don't see that, they're going to eventually look for the next best thing. I mean, everybody my age is all over TikTok. It's all about the 30-second videos plus or minus, and then on to the next thing. It's what's next instead of this is a home and a career. So you need to figure out how to get them to see that you can be that home and career.
Can I commandeer the rest of this real quick? About cell phones, that's a big thing. When I started, there were no cell phones. We had a flip phone all of a sudden, and then and where we're at today, I mean, it's on the tables, really, right? But in an office setting, we have people who don't use it, people who just the entire day it's like this, and it's like their friends are a part of, they're working with them. It's not productive to be starting, stopping, starting, stopping. How do you communicate that without looking like this old dude who doesn't understand that it's the latest in TikTok fad and they're all doing whatever, or can't I?
It's a valid question. I'm the same way with my cell phone. I use it for text, I use it for notes, I use it for reminders. And then I'm still working on the computer all at the same time, and I'm probably picking my phone up, setting it down, picking it up, setting it down. As long as I'm accomplishing what's on my plate at the end of the day, that's what matters. If they're not accomplishing that, then that's less of a phone issue and more of a you're not meeting your expectations. Do they know their expectations?
We try to set them, and we try to have them work on certain things that are reasonable.
Right.
This has to be done today or this week, or you have a month. The problem is the month things need to be someone who's more senior so that you know,
Right.
how do you really divide your time into a month? It's just what we're growing pains.
Right.
We went from 5 to 17 in a couple of years, and now we're trying to figure out how to make everybody kind of keep pulling. Because some people breaking their back, working crazy hours, they're on the weekends, and then 8:30, 5:30, 12:30, 8:30, 5:30, 12:30, but then they're not,
Sure.
part of that, so.
The more clear you are on your expectations of what truly you need out of them, and if they're performing to your expectations, the more clear you are, the less ambiguity and misunderstandings you're going to have. And they're going to know, and they need to know, are they performing? They need to know that.
So the cell phone's part of the
I wouldn't even worry about
Part
cell
of the
phones.
purpose, it's like, it's there, just worry about the efficiency.
If you're addressing the cell phone issue, I don't even think that's something that really needs to be worried about. What needs to be worried about is, are they accomplishing what you have as an expectation? Are they meeting your expectations? If not, maybe the cell phone thing is delaying that, but that could be a problem, or is it something else? If they're meeting your expectations, then is the cell phone thing really a problem?
Do you feel that way in your business? You've got a lot of different types of companies here. If you pulled up onto a job site and young guys are out there, you know, you got 3, 4, 5 guys working, you know, on a job site, you know, installing plants, whatever they might be doing. How do you feel when you walk up, if you see 3 or 4 guys on their phone, how do you deal with that?
So from that perspective.
Because you are in a different generation.
Yeah.
I see where he's going with it, because, you know, if we set expectations and the work gets completed, I agree. You know, when I was a young salesman, you know, I didn't want to be micromanaged.
Mhm.
And my bosses have always known that on Friday, my work would be done. So I would meet those expectations. What I was doing in the meantime didn't matter quite as much. I was a little bit rebellious. But my question would be, in today's generation, what do you do if you were to pull up on a job site?
I think it's different when you're looking at a production role versus an office setting. Being a production role, they only have a certain amount of time allotted to do each job. If they're on their phones, then they're not performing the job in that allotted time. So if it's time-based, where time on the phone takes away from time on the property, that means that property is not going to get done, or they're going to push into overtime to now achieve it. So now that causes a problem because they're not managing their time. And if they have enough time to do the whole property and hang out on their phones, then our managers aren't managing the schedule like it should be. I think that's where you go into production time efficiency versus a completely different setting of accomplishing something in an office setting.
What you just explained is what we do.
Okay.
We do production. Instead of working with our hands, and
Right.
getting dirty maybe, they're in an office working with their hands in front of a computer. It's still production.
Right.
And we have goals as well. My concern as a business owner, I go, well, we have rock stars that get paid like rock stars, who can do all the work. But if they're not efficient during the week, then it's hard to tell where they're at. I apologize. It's just,
No, I mean,
it's when we work together in a place where
Yeah.
we're the generation that we were told that they're mean and nasty to us. Because when they were, the older guys were told, I'm gonna hire 2 the same day, and in 6 months, I'm gonna fire 1 of you. And that's the mentality of people who trained us
Yeah.
had. And then we're the results, we're the babies of that.
Yeah,
And
you know,
so-
and the reason I ask the question is because most employers today are facing that similar challenge.
Right.
Production or not. And so I was just kind of curious to know if somebody's got the secret sauce.
Well, I mean, maybe the phone thing is a problem. I mean, if it's so bad that you notice it, then maybe they're not doing their job the way that they could be doing.
I think it's tricky to know what they're doing on their phones too, right?
looking something up.
Because it could be that I mean, I have a lot of productivity from my phone, but I also check myself, like, and I don't know if maybe sometimes our younger, like I'll go to the settings and look at what did I do on my phone today. And if I see the social media bar really high, then I know I didn't use my time well. So maybe there's something to that sense of, I don't know, maybe there's a creative way to do sort of a challenge with your team of, looking at those analytics and,
Yeah.
maybe there's a reward or there's something when, you're looking at those hours and, we're gonna play a little game and everybody submit your time. And I mean, sometimes I think with the younger people, you just have to get creative. You have to think outside the box a little bit.
We're trying without looking like
Jerks, right?
we want them to have fun, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's an architecture office." You had a vision in your head. What we do, we don't have foosball, but it's a nice office. And, they chat and we have fun. It's an open office, so we're trying to figure it out.
You guys seem fun.
Thanks. Well, when he said principal for the day, I was like, woof, I
Yeah.
could let someone do my job for the day? Yeah, that's what you're going with it. I was like, yeah.
Boss for the day.
Well, with just a few minutes left, I want to be sure, if there are any other questions for Brett before we wrap up.
Just have a comment, both of you guys exude family business. It's amazing for being your age too, and that's great. I commend you for that. I've only worked for family businesses and I know it's hard for the next generation for the succession plan. How do you keep the family business, we're local, and then bring it to, like, what's your vision for bringing it to the next level? And, how do you not lose that, boutique-y feeling? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Basically, how do we go from family business
Okay.
smaller to a larger family business that doesn't lose that and go corporate, right? It's just having, I think, it's not only just having our involvement where we don't just step back and say, all right, bye, but showing face, being there with the team, and then having our values, which is where I was mentioning earlier, that we want to revisit. What are those values of business? So we're working through that, but some of those values that we're trying to build and get back out there to everybody is to make sure that you are treating people with respect and you're dependable. Some of the things that you get with a smaller business, and a family-owned business is that dependability. You don't have to handhold us. We're there and we'll take care of you because we care. So to not lose that is by instilling those values from the ground up in every level. That way, every person, whoever comes and works for ALG, they know that these are our expectations, that you treat everybody as you would want to be treated. You treat everybody with respect and you're there for them. So I've pushed partnership in our business with each other, inside the business, with our clients, customers, vendors, all of that. It's about on every level, are you a partner? Not us up here, but people that as we continue to grow, that on every level you'll be able to have those conversations with where you feel like a partner.
Do you guys set boundaries at home? Like after 7 p.m., we don't talk about work or
We're,
We can't
we're
do that.
working-
That is it's a touchy subject. I think with us being young and everything, we're figuring that out very quickly. That, the more busy that we get, the more boundaries we do need to do. Because at the end of the day, some people can look at the job, we're working from 9 to 5 and everything, but it's not a 9 to 5 for us, it's a 24/7. Business does not stop for us at least. And I kind of wanted to touch on a little bit on what Brett was saying about, hiring the people. Of course, we could say, you guys are great at doing this job. We're just going to step back and thanks for helping us run the business. And we could be non-existent. And I think in a lot of businesses, that's where you don't get that family feel, is because they hire their employees and they, of course you trust your employees and you let them go, but you still need to be a part of your business, because if you're not, then your employees will not respect your business. They won't know how much it means to you, because I go in there every morning, and I tell them that, hey, you guys are doing a great job. I really appreciate it. This business means a lot to me. This is my livelihood. If we all don't work hard, where, what do we have then? We don't have anything. And I think treating our employees, and I always hate saying employees because that's not what they are for me. It doesn't matter if they are a laborer. My father works with us too. It could be my dad. I wouldn't treat him any different than a guy that's out there pushing a mower. So we like to do a lot of things for our guys where we just had a fall festival for their families. That's in their culture, they like to do family time. And I think that was very meaningful, and it sets us apart than most companies, that are growing. And even if we are at 40 million one day, I have promised myself I will not change who I am today. I mean, of course you grow and you do change, but I will never want it to feel like it's not family owned, even if the numbers are getting larger. I want to be face. I want people to know, oh, hey, Ivy's out here, you know. I wonder why she's out here. Most people are like, why don't you send somebody else? It's like, well, why would I, you know? I like being involved just as anybody else is. Just because I can have somebody run it for me doesn't mean that I just am gonna be hands off. That's just not my ethic or anything like that.
Even before we brought on, our new chief operations, where I was doing a lot of meetings with our direct teams in each branch as well. I could turn around and say, all right, you got it, and then step out and then let him run it. But to a degree, he has taken it and he has ran with it. But I don't want to turn around and not see my team, to your point. And to your point, that's, yeah, I mean, we're working through it. We're not there yet, and, you know, we probably do need better boundaries to be able to
Thanks for bringing
say,
it up. Appreciate it.
it's more me than her, but I guess the way that I see it is, you know, I take it very seriously. I'm responsible at the end of the day for everybody's lives that works with me. What I say, all the ALG family, I'm responsible. So if there's something going on or something like that, even if it's late at night, I feel responsible, and I feel like it's a need for me. But to your point, that's not necessarily healthy. To a point where we do need to turn around and say, okay, it's time for me to have some me time and for us to have some us time, family time.
There is one thing that we have started recently with everything kind of changing is an hour of family time each night. No matter what time it is, we have to set an hour every day. Even on the weekends, we have to do that because we work throughout the weekends as well. But that is something I think that we can share is that we have had to do an hour, but I think even adjusting that even more, you know, because we have just, obviously we're freshly married, so we're trying to figure out all different things that do work for us, that don't work for us. And I think the good thing is that with us knowing each other for so long, we had that foundation of being friends first. So that comfortability, that trust is there. So most newly married couples, you would be like, well, you know, how do you do it? And I think what genuinely helped us was being friends for 20 years. I know his quirks, he knows mine. He knows anything and everything about me. And I think that was very important for us too, is having that background and kind of knowing what each other does or doesn't like, you know, and we've seen each other grow for the last 20 or so years. And so we kind of know a lot about each other and what one another just doesn't like. But we're working through, I think it's ever changing. Maybe the whole hour thing won't work some nights and that's what it is, but you figure it out as you go.
You just want to get burnt out.
Yeah.
You're young.
Yeah, of course.
Well, everyone, please join me. Brett, this is not, maybe we talked about not the toughest spot, but it is a tough spot to be in. On top of it, we asked you about generational diversity in the workplace, running a family business and your home life. So thank you for tackling all of those elephants in the room for us. Everybody join me in thanking Brett. We appreciate you guys. For folks that are following this series, be on the lookout. We'll have one more session. We're trying to get that date nailed down, but we'll have one more session before the year ends. And we appreciate y'all being here today.
Thank you.